I'm here with Martin and Colleen, who was in a horrific car accident. What happened in your car accident? Like, how long ago was it and stuff?
It was in 2013. It was, I don't really know what happened. None of us do. It was just, I woke up, I lost 3 weeks before that. And I was in a coma instantly. It wasn't an induced coma. My body worked the way it was supposed to. And so I actually was on the phone with Martin when I was driving home. And so he remembers that.
So yeah, it was 12 years ago. We were dating at the time. Now we're married with children, but we were dating long distance, and we were on the phone. It was a late night. She was staying at a friend's house, and she was just trying to, they had gone out that night. So she's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna hang out here," and she was like really tired. So I'm like, let me just like relax before I hit the road to go home. And again, like I said, I was living 2,000 miles away. We were in different states. So I was just calling. Hey, we're leaving right now. So we're just, having a conversation as she's driving home, and the call drops. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I called her back, and she answered, and we kept our conversation going, and then it dropped again. And then I'm like, what's going on? Like, you must be in a dead zone. She answered again when I called her back, and then it dropped the third time, and she never answered. And then I started to and then I continually called, and I started to get nervous, and I started to get worried. And I'm like, okay. I was leaving her voicemail. It was like, hey, I don't want to call like your parents or anything like that, but like I need to hear something. And then the next time I called, Florida Highway Patrol officer answered her phone.
Wow. And
she's like, who is this? And the trooper was like, hey, who is this? And I'm like, who is this? You answered my girlfriend's phone, and it's a woman's voice, but it's not my girlfriend's voice. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry to tell you this. Like, your girlfriend was in a very bad accident. She's being sent over by ambulance to Delray Medical Center, and there's been a horrific accident. And I was, like I said, 2,000 miles away. So this had to be at 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I had her parents' number. So I had called her parents, who lived down here at the time, and then they went and obviously went to her aid as soon as possible. But yeah, she was in a coma, not medically induced. Her body put herself in a coma. She was out for just under 14 days in the coma before she finally woke up. She broke her neck. She broke her leg. Mm-hmm. It was rough. I mean, during that time, they're like, hey, preparing us for, hey, what if she doesn't wake up? But they also prepared us, this medical staff, like, hey, if she wakes up, she's
going to be a different person.
Yeah, she might not be the same person
Wow.
that you were used to, because she's gone through a traumatic brain injury. They were explaining about brain shearing, and basically how your brain's just rattled like a blender inside your brain, and obviously the effects that can have. So even after she woke up, I mean, she was in the hospital weeks after that. How to learn how to walk again, how to learn how to tell time again, how to read, and then from there was physical therapy and occupational therapy for months.
And speech
Therapy,
speech,
and then when she was released, she had to go home, but she couldn't be left home. Like I said, you're dating long distance, so I lived too far away, so she had to move in with her parents just to be watched, because they're like, hey, she can't, even though she thought she could. Yeah. She thought she could do all of these things, and then she'd be mid-conversation with you and just start making no sense with what she was saying. She would stand there and look at you and just start spewing off like random numbers.
Oh, so she'd like lose her...
Yeah, but mid-set, and obviously, I mean, I know you know us, so she's a charmer, so some people are like, oh, she's fine, and I'm like, no, she's not fine. She's not that nice, or she's not that, she's not that smooth. Like she would try to put on a show. She would make up these stories in her head that she thought was 100% true. What are you talking about? I have to go to work. What are you doing? I own a business. You don't own a business. She was dead set. Like, yeah, no, that's what I do for a living. And it took a while, and like she said, she doesn't have, even to this day, she doesn't have any recollection of not only the night, but through, like, she has no memory of 2 or 3 weeks before that.
Mm-hmm. So I lost all that.
And we tried to look at the crash report or see if there's anything else involved, and it was a single car accident. Her car hit the median. This was when she was young and stupid and not wearing a seatbelt.
No seatbelt.
And basically she went from the driver's seat to the passenger side. There's the A-pillar, that pole that goes down your windshield, and the back of her head hit that, and that's kind of what causes this TBI.
Wow.
And what kind of put us on this crazy journey.
Wow.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest parts about it now is just the fact that like we still don't know what happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's been this long, and it's like we still don't know what specifically caused it. Or we thought of all different types of things. You know, her father at the time was in law enforcement, so he's like his brain's going, you know, one way or another. And then we found out that the car she was driving had a recall on a braking system or power steering. I mean, so and then this car, that the only thing we know about the crash was that she went directly into the median. So we're like, oh, maybe the power steering. We don't know. So like we were just trying to figure things out, and nothing really in the crash report was helpful in determining the actual cause of the crime. It was just kind of like car meets median.
There was no passenger. There was no other car.
So
no witnesses.
No witnesses. I mean, like I said, this was probably 4 o'clock in the morning on 95.
Right.
So thankfully, actually, what happened? Really, more details. Thankfully, what happened was there was an off-duty police officer driving that was like behind and like kind of like witnessed the crash from like far ahead of them. So they were able to like stop and get on the radio, call it out, and get services like going before the, I guess, FHP responded. So it was like, as crazy as that event was, like certain things just were perfectly set in place to give us the best possible outcome that could have happened. Because I mean, it was clearly life-changing. And not just her life. I mean, her whole family's life changed, So, and then, like she said, she was that 29-year-old, party girl, and all of a sudden she's like, wait a second, like, I almost died. So like, let's change some things. It's not all about going to work and making a lot of money. It's like, well, let's spend some time with friends and family and find the quality of life, So that was nice. It kind of changed the perspective for everybody. We're the same age, so it's not like I'm like, oh, she needs to grow up. I'm like, no, I was just as dumb and stupid then too, It was definitely an experience that I could thankfully say we came out on top. Right. Obviously, she came out on top, but like, wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Not at all.
Yeah. The crazy part is, so the first time I came to visit her, and they said, hey, she's been out. Like she's
not
out.
Coming.
She's not coming to. She's in a coma. And like I said, there used to be 2 visiting times. So her family would come to the first one, and like I said, they were an hour away. So after the first one, they would go home and they're like, see you tomorrow, Colleen. So my brother-in-law picked me up from the airport. My future brother-in-law, I should say, picked me up from the airport, and I'm like, you got to take me to the hospital. Like, you have to come up. You have to. I looked up. I know there's a second visiting hours. You got to take me to the hospital. So she's like, all right, I'll take you. So we went, which was actually in the opposite direction. We go down to the hospital. I get there, and I'm like, Colleen, you got to open your eyes. Like, Colleen, you got to open your eyes for me, please. Like, if you can hear me, open your eyes. And my brother-in-law was like, hey, man, like, don't stress her out. She hasn't opened her eyes yet. Doctor says, she might not wake up, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, open your eyes. And she opened her eyes. And that was like the first time. And I'm like, you saw that, right? Like, because I'm like, they're going to be like, no way, you have boyfriend. I'm like, you saw that, right? And she opened her eyes, and I'm like, I was like so excited. And, but like I said, it was intermittent. So she'd open her eyes and just, that was it. Like, and then a couple of days went by. I had to fly back home. I came back, same thing. I'm like, you got to wake up. You got to wake up. And she woke up, like when I was there. I don't think because I was there, but she woke up when I was there. But the best part about it was, remember I told you, like, she was kind of like, her hands were restrained, but then at one point she couldn't talk, but she was like gesturing or using it, like, in my mind, because we've known each other since middle school. Right, so I'm like, is she going to see me and think like, oh, my friend Martin's here? Or is she going to remember me that, like, we're dating, we're in a good relationship, like, we're in a serious relationship? Like, I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. And so I wake up, or she wakes up, and she, like, I'm in a crowd, in this room with all her friends, and she like points at me, and she's like, so I walk over, I'm like, hey, what's up? And she's like this, like to give her a hug. And everybody's like, oh my God. Everybody, all the girls are like crying and stuff. And I'm like, she remembers, you know, it was like, that was like a cool moment. But yeah, it was like, it was nuts, but it was also like, see that? You see that? You know, she remembers me. Like, because sometimes, like her one friend, that was one of the things. Her friends would be like just around the hospital, kind of, you know, the room, just kind of telling stories. And she had no filter at the time.
Oh, God.
And she would remember things. So she'd be like, I remember, do you remember that one time we blah, blah, blah? And her friends were like, shut up. Like, that was like a secret between you and I, you know?
Now everyone knows.
So now it's like a quick, like, hey, earmuffs, everybody. Like, don't say anything. And, you know, but like I said, at that point, you saw who was around for a long haul. And
right,
who wasn't,
yeah.
You know?
That's
But,
nice.
For sure.
Yeah.